What's going on, guys? Welcome to my next Doctor Who review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 9th Doctor Christopher Eccleston story, The End of the World, written by Russell T Davies. So this is the second episode of the new series altogether. Series 1, Episode 2. It's kind of the first proper trip in the TARDIS for the new series as well, for the 9th Doctor and Rose. And yeah, I guess because of that it's a fairly big story. However, it is actually really quite a minimalistic, just kind of average run-of-the-mill, mid-series story really. The main focus on it really being that it is the first proper trip for this new series and for this new companion and even this new Doctor really. Through our eyes anyway. So it's big because of that, but other than that, it's really kind of your basic sort of, mid-series sort of story. But anyway, let's get started with the cast. So we've got Christopher Eccleston as the 9th Doctor. Now this is, of course, his second appearance, and yeah, he's pretty good here. I do like him. He has some nice funny moments when he's dancing along to the music. I think it's Tainted Love that he was dancing along to at the start. There's the funny moments like when he's like, I give air from my lungs, and he's like breathing. I think that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny stuff there. Generally, he just has some cool stuff, funny stuff again, like when he's like, chill out, when after he's trying to figure out how to get the force field back up. Generally, just quite a few funny moments from the 9th Doctor here, but also some very serious moments. I mean, you've got like with when he's with Rose and she's asking him who he is, where he's from, what species is he, and he just won't tell her and he starts getting mad. They both start getting mad at each other, and generally I thought that was a great moment for Christopher Eccleston there. Just played that really well, but then he, once again, in contrast to that, had the funny jiggery pokery bit when he was getting Rose's phone so it would work kind of anywhere. That was a nice little funny moment there. So yeah, I feel like he's definitely got both the comedic and the serious side in this episode, but they balance out pretty well and work together. Of course, then we've got Billie Piper as Rose Tyler. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Rose in this story. In a lot of, I don't know, Rose is really here and there for me. Sometimes she's really good, other times I don't really like her, and in this episode I don't really like Rose. I think she's actually, when she starts off in series 1, she's not that great. I think she gets a little bit better in The Young Quiet Dead for next episode, and she kind of gradually gets a bit better throughout series 1. Then in series 2, she's kind of a bit all over the place. But yeah, I think for the first 2 episodes for series 1, I'm not a big fan of her. And in this one, yeah, really not. Honestly, I think, and it's not because of Billie Piper, it's because of the way that the character's written. This is probably my least favourite episode for Rose, just because I don't like how she acts. She snaps at the Doctor for seemingly no real reason. I mean, yeah, she's just been taken away and she's been taken to the end of the world, but she wanted to come along in the TARDIS, so yeah, there's just a lot of, she kind of snaps at Cassandra for, yeah, fair enough, Cassandra, she's, claiming to be the last human on Earth, and she really is just a piece of skin with a brain, but it kind of feels unnatural for her to just snap at her the way she does. And yeah, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of Rose Tyler in this one, not because of Billie Piper, just because I don't think her character is written a bit too kind of negatively in this, I think. Anyway, let's go down to the good and the bad, starting off with the good. The first appearance of the psychic paper. This is the first time we see the psychic paper. If you don't know, the psychic paper is, it's a thing that was introduced in the new series, and actually in this episode. Psychic paper, at least from what I know, was not a thing in the classic series. Maybe it appeared at one point, but I don't think it did. I'm pretty sure it is a new series thing that Russell T Davies invented. And this is the first time we get to see it, and yeah, it's nice. I think the psychic paper needs to be used more nowadays. We've seen it very rarely throughout the Moffat era and the Whittaker era, Chris Chibnall's era. It was definitely more of an RTD era thing, but I'd love to see it a bit more, because I think it's just it's just an extra little tool along with the sonic screwdriver and the TARDIS and stuff like that the Doctor has, that I would like to see a bit more of nowadays. I don't feel like it got overused in the RTD era, but I feel like it's kind of been massively underused ever since. The variety of different species. So this episode was mainly, I think, here to show off look, Doctor Who's maybe got a little bit more of a budget than it used to when it was back on in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Still not a massive budget, but look, we can make all these cool costumes, these cool monster designs. And you know what, for the most part, these are pretty cool. You've got the trees, which are basically just humanoid trees. You've got the repeated meme, which are like these black cloaked figures with like robotic hands. You've got the Mox of Bahum, which is this little fat blue thing on like a hover thing, like a wheelchair, like a hover chair, I guess. You've got the face of Bo, of course, his first appearance in this. Doesn't really do anything in this story. He's just kind of, I don't think he says anything actually in this story. He just kind of appears. He's there on the space station, and this is what starts his whole thing off. But of course, he's a lot more relevant in the 2 other stories to come in the next 2 series. But you've got all these different monsters and different creatures, and yeah, it's really cool to see that, especially after the first episode, the Autons were the only, creature-like thing, and so to see all these other different species, really, really cool. The Doctor saving Rose. So this is when the sun shield is coming down in the room she's in. She can't get out when the Doctor's trying to save her. I thought that was just a nice moment. It kind of built the tension a lot more, because generally this episode, I wouldn't say the pacing's off, but it is a little slower paced at some points. But yeah, this kind of ramped it up a little bit at this point, so that was a nice little moment for the Rose and the Rose, for the Doctor and Rose as well. The Doctor letting Cassandra die, pretty brutal stuff. And some people might say, oh, the Doctor wouldn't do that, even though she has, basically caused all these other people dying. He wouldn't just let her die. No, I don't think nowadays, I don't think the Doctor would. But you got to remember, this is the Doctor not long after the Time War, and he's pretty ruthless here. And I mean, throughout the series, and it shows it throughout the series, Rose makes the Doctor better, and gets him to do things that he gets him to be more reasonable, I guess. So I think this, for this time in this Doctor's incarnation, that the point that we're at, I think this is a perfectly fine thing. And yeah, it's pretty brutal, and honestly, it really adds to the story for what comes later. And then finally, for the good, we've got the Doctor mentioning Gallifrey is gone, and he's the last of the Time Lords. So yeah, this is the Revelation episode where we find out that Gallifrey's gone, there's been a war. That's all we really know though, we just know that Gallifrey's gone, it's been basically turned into dust like the Earth was in this episode. There was a war between the Time Lords and someone else, we don't know who that is at this point, and all the Time Lords are supposedly dead, and the Ninth Doctor, the Doctor, is the last Time Lord. So yeah, a really big moment for the show, I guess. Very, very big stuff going on there, and little hints of it here and there where Jabe was, she used that little device to see what species he was, and there was little bits here and there throughout the story, throughout the episode, of her mentioning to the Doctor, I can't believe you're still alive, I'm so sorry for what happened. And then at the end of the episode, the Doctor finally opens up to Rose about that. I honestly think that's probably the best thing about this episode, the Rose and Doctor dynamic. Although I don't like Rose in the story, I think their chemistry does get better throughout this story. And yeah, it's just really cool to see basically the start of the Time War arc here. So on to the bad. There are a few things to talk about here actually. First of all, Rose, what's that say? Snapping off at the Doctor out of nowhere. It feels just really out of nowhere, like I said. There wasn't any real build up to it. I mean, yeah, the Doctor's not completely answering her questions, but he's not being a dick about it, and yeah, she just really snaps and kind of annoys me, to be honest, and I can understand why the Doctor snaps back at her. Her just snapping there really doesn't do a whole lot for me, and that also goes for Rose kind of snapping at Cassandra as well. It feels a bit too out of place. The steward can't put the sun filter back up. Really don't understand that. You've got the little metal spider comes along, presses a single button, the sun filter goes down, and the steward apparently can't put it back up. He sits there for like 3 seconds, just like, oh god, I'm about to get burned alive, and then starts frantically pressing buttons. Is there not a way to... Surely he would know how to put that filter back up. Surely. I mean, it didn't lock the thing out just by pressing one button. If it did, then that is a terrible, terrible system. So yeah, that's really stupid. Yeah, mentioned this before, Rose isn't very likable, just generally in this story, kind of already gone over that. And then finally, why have the force field lever behind all the fans. This is one thing I've always been very confused about. What a stupid place to have the manual lever. I mean, yeah, normally it does get done automatically, but if you need a manual, if you need to do it manually, obviously you need to do it because there's an emergency, because the system's gone down. So why have it in a place where you really physically can't get to? I mean, the Doctor manages to get through by having Jabe hold down the lever for going through 2 of the fans, but then for the final fan kind of has to phase through it. I didn't really understand what that whole thing was all about. I can kind of let it go a little bit. You know, it's a Time Lordy thing. Maybe he slows down time, and I don't know. It's a bit strange, but it doesn't really bother me. But yeah, just the fan being in that place. I mean, talk about impractical. Alright, so a rating for The End of the World. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10, which is actually half a point less than I kind of initially had in my brain. I was initially thinking this is probably a 6.5 out of 10, but after watching it, there's actually a lot more wrong with this than I thought. Now, I still enjoy watching this episode. It's still one that I enjoy watching, but it definitely has some issues that I can't give it a high rating for. So, yeah, a 6 out of 10 is what I'm going to give The End of the World. So, let's go to the other camera, to my phone camera, and we'll see what episode we're going to be reviewing for next week. Alrighty, so here we are. Let's pick out our next episode. This is all sealed up. I'm going to put my finger over there because it's actually a money box, and if I don't put my finger over there, paper comes out everywhere. So I'm going to shake it up, see if we can really get this shaken up. I think that's going to be pretty good. Let's see what episode we're going to be reviewing next week. Alright, I'm going to try and pick one from the top this time because I've always been like going right down to the bottom. We've got this one here. Our next episode to review is The Day of the Doctor. Okay. Alright. It's another Matt Smith story. So we had one of those in the first episode, but it's also got the 10th Doctor in it, and it's got John Hurt, the War Doctor. So, yeah, we're going to go with that. The Day of the Doctor will be our next Doctor Who review, so look out for that next week. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, link is in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next video.